Welcome everyone to Queued Up with Ziz and Pam, where we're having powerful conversations that question what it means to be educated in the 21st century. So Pam, we're back at this another week, and I gotta tell you, I really love that Dr. Shefali quote. It was, "You don't fix your child, you create the conditions for them to rise." What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts? Yeah, well, tell me. I mean, that's right in your wheelhouse.
Yes, it is in my wheelhouse because I'm a total believer. Matter of fact, I love her book, The Conscious Parent, where she talks about how our children are here to teach us. And I will say that for myself, learning to be a learner rather than a teacher was such a relief. And so anyway, so I am a believer that we cannot mold or shape our children. They are not pieces of clay. They're not canvases to draw upon. They are their own unique and individual human being. And that it is our job as parents to figure out how to create the conditions that allow that unique human being to develop into the best version that they can be based on what their interests are, based on who they are as a person, based on what their circumstances are. How do we create the conditions that allow them to flourish?
Now, Pam, yeah, I got to tell you, I'm sure some parents were like, "What are you telling me? Like, are you kidding me?" Like and actually it's interesting because like, if I think back, to my own childhood and it's an interesting thought. I'm still thinking about it. I don't disagree with it, but it's just like, whoa, hold on. Create the conditions that actually create the conditions for the child to really flourish.
Yes, yes.
That's
That means that we don't impose upon them. And this goes to our standardized school system that decides this culture of sameness, that everybody has to be exactly the same. Now, the thought was college for all, same education for all, creates the ability for everyone to achieve the same thing, but it has not done that. It's never actually worked, no matter what kind of system has involved that for all, because it really requires the individuals who make up the sum of the parts. So what a crazy and sad world. I remember I was telling my daughter about this blog I was writing about the culture of sameness, and how all these kids at the same age, the same time, the same environment, the same subject have to do the same thing. And she just looked at me and she goes, "Mom, that's a terrible world, to not have different kinds of people." So for the fabric of a society, we need everyone. And as we talked about in one of our previous segments, we're seeing that in our economy today, that we need every type of person. We need the caregivers, we need the carpenters, we need the nurses, we need the grocery store clerks. We need all of these types of people to contribute to society at any given time. Now, do I want someone to have a career as a grocery store clerk? No, I would want them to have other opportunities. But is it appropriate to say, hey, as a starter job, go be a grocery store clerk? Absolutely. How are we devaluing some things and saying that other things are more important? We still have this old paradigm that we have a blue collar and a white collar economy. And that is not true.
Do you really think that paradigm still exists? I mean, people really consciously think about that, or are they really in this position of like, they're just trying to survive? Like some people, I think some people are really, they're doing much better than surviving. And then some are like, I'm just trying to get through the week.
Well, I think that's just that. I think that we have turned over so much to institutional systems to take care of it for us. I mean, and this is true at the corporate level. We want certainty in an uncertain world. So we want the school to educate our children. We want corporations to provide us soup to nuts with benefits, secure job. And we think that that's just what's going to make us happy. right? That's going to give us a successful life. But we're finding, of course, that that's not true, because we're missing that component of what matters and is meaningful to each one of us. And so I think that survival has definitely, we've been reacting to this change in the economy, not realizing that it's happening as we're having to scramble and adapt and look at scarcity like, oh my gosh, everybody has to go to college to get a good job. And if they don't go to college, and college is so expensive, and we've got to start them in preschool to get them there, and not even looking at the fact that that is not what's happening. And the outcomes are not there. And the sacrifice these poor children have had, historians will not be kind to us. They're going to look at our generation of parents and go, whoa. I mean, it's like when they put bent the foot, in China, to put they thought that was really breaking the foot, to put these women in these shoes, that was the norm. Or when we did 40,000 lobotomies because we thought that was how you cured mental illness. I mean, we have done some things in this time period of hyper parenting and this education, shoving kids on a conveyor belt of education and letting that machine eat them alive. And we're all feeding the machine. Everybody's feeding this machine. We just don't want to acknowledge we're feeding the machine. We want to blame the teachers. Teachers want to blame the parents. Everyone is feeding this machine. And guess who is the one who's having to pay the highest price? The child.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's, I got a phone call yesterday. What a concept, right? An actual phone call. And I'm telling you, at the time, I mean, it was just a welcome call, because it was from two college mates. One who played soccer and also had a professional career playing soccer. He's currently an athletic director at a private school, a friend's school in Montgomery County, Maryland. And his wife and I, through the years have remained in touch, and he and I have gotten to be closer. And they both called me yesterday, and they were like, oh my God, segment 2 was awesome. And the point that he really, really loved, his name is Steve Powers. The point that he really loved was about the multi-generational point that you made in our last segment. And it took him back to the conversation he used to have with his grandfather. And he just said his grandfather would share these unbelievably great stories. And as he thought back, he's like, wow, they really helped to shape me. So that particular piece and what you've talked about and what we've been discussing, and how we really need everyone together, is so important, and it's critical. Unfortunately, we're building homes for parents and adults. I mean, in this particular culture, I mean, not every culture does that, but for whatever reason, America has decided to go in this direction. And consequently, we've taken away that piece that could be helping to share these unbelievable stories with the younger generation.
Yes. And I think that we had both talked about before, David Brooks' piece in The Atlantic called The Nuclear Family was a mistake. That this issue of isolating down to just this very, very small component of individuals has been something that has been detrimental to the health and well-being of our society at all levels. Yeah. And I think that this opportunity that we have now, actually, I look at this pandemic, and we have been able to start moving away from our silos to creating that infrastructure, whether it be next door, whether it be Zoom connections, whether it be all these different things, but somehow equating education with a classroom as being the be-all, end-all has been really, really a false narrative that we have allowed. We have all contributed and allowed, say, oh, send our kids to school and we'll plug them in and they'll come out the other end, this happy and successful person. Again, we can't do that to a human being. A human being is not a robot. They are not a widget. They cannot be molded, shaped, and spit out the other end. There's a sociologist that Viktor Frankl used to like to quote, William Irwin Thompson, I believe. He said, when you treat human beings like tables and chairs, that will devalue them, or I'm paraphrasing, to the point they will want to commit suicide, because it takes away the essence of who they are. And we've done this, we've defined the value of them as being an external output, whether it be a grade, whether it be an award, whether it be a test score, whether it be a salary, whether it be a degree, so that they're constantly measuring against an external output and always not measuring up in some way, shape, or form. And that is what causes that shame and this distress in our culture, our society.
So for whatever reason, the example you just shared took me to Google, and actually Daniel Pink's book Drive.
Yes.
And in his book, he talks about one of the things that we want is to belong. And if I also remember correctly, he also talked about how Google, the corporation that we all know, and they at some point in time designed some time for their employees just to work on a project that they wanted to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Autonomy,
mm-hmm.
giving them autonomy. Another important point for all of us to have and need and love. So in doing so, that's how Gmail came about. So it's unbelievable, like you're saying, when we give individuals autonomy, we help them to belong, unbelievable things happen.
Duncan Wardle, he loves to talk about this. He says, how many ideas happen when you're sitting in your office? He polls the audience. Of course, they'll say shower, on a walk, and
Yeah.
Google decided to jump on that because they have I think it's called the 20% rule, one day
Yep.
a week, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
They actually, Microsoft, when they did that experiment in Japan to go to a 4-day work week, and productivity increased like 40% or something crazy like that. And they were like, whoa. So trapping us to certain environments, assuming that becomes productive, has been not productive. And in fact, it has led to a lot of distress, which is manifesting itself in what Viktor Frankl called that existential vacuum that led to aggression, depression, and addiction. We either numb ourselves, we get depressed, we get aggressive and angry and mad, and because we aren't valued. And we require our kids to fit in to our expectations, the school's definition of what is successful, not be who they are.
You just jumped into something, because literally yesterday I asked a question on my Instagram page, and the question was basically, what is success? And a couple of students responded. One particular high school student said, success to me is measured by opportunity. Successful people are presented with not always more opportunity, but the right opportunities which cause them to excel in life. And that was from a 10th grader.
Wow. Yes, and a very insightful 10th grader that again goes to each person is unique. The situations that you're presented with are unique to you and how you choose to respond. This goes to freedom of choice, yes. But we have to be aware of these different moments, and that we have to teach our children that it's their responsibility to respond to the moment.
Right.
Okay, not look to someone to tell them, hey, here's the moment. We've trained dependency.
Well, I mean, just going back to the post that I shared on Instagram, because essentially it was a gentleman who, Stephen Bartlett, he said, from age 0 to 18, our success depends on us learning to do what we're supposed to. From age 18 onwards, our success depends on us unlearning what we're supposed to. and then he said, obedience, conformity, and risk avoidance are useful for playground survival, but diagnosis for adult life. So one of the other students who happens to be in college, second year of college, she said, what he's saying kind of makes sense, but kind of doesn't. Success has a different meaning to every individual. Mm-hmm. To me, success is doing the things that you want in life and not feeling like you have to do anything to please other people. Success is personal.
Yes.
So the cool part to me is how first, when she first started off, you could see she's thinking. She's like, ah, this makes sense. This doesn't make, she's struggling with it a little. And then she got to what her answer was.
Which was the opposite of what we teach, because we teach a definition of success, usually affiliated with wealth, and status and measurement of things that we can externally see. And so she had to take a moment to say, wait a minute, that's not, I don't buy into that. And many of us, as you know, as we get older in life, we come to that conclusion and begin to step off the boat going, you know what? This is how we develop into our authentic self, is to say, I don't meet that measurement, or I don't, I'm not going to be whatever external measurement, whether it be looks, whether it be wealth, whether it be status, whether it be whatever. And I find we're in that moment of decision of what we culturally are going to decide. Are we going to keep framing it under this external? But we also chose, we actually voted with our feet to stay home and say, people are more important than money. We decided, the 96% of us that were not going to get very sick, decided that those 4% that were going to be so impacted, who had compromised systems, who were older, who were obese, who had risk factors, we decided that they were more important. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It is really awesome. All right, I got to share one more of these from another college student. And she essentially said, I think that success depends on each person and the individual goals they have set out for themselves. Someone could view success for themselves as getting a stable job and raising a family, while someone else could view success as traveling the world and experiencing new cultures and never settling down. So I guess success is being able to envision a life and create goals for yourself and work towards accomplishing them in whatever way works best for you. So I love how they started off one way and then how they came down. So that's to me, and I know already to you, that's us parents just getting out of the way, going back to that quote.
Yeah.
Create the conditions for them to thrive.
And be the learner.
Yeah.
We've got to step back and be the learner. We cannot keep teaching according to our model of and framework. We missed an entire economic opportunity by shaping our kids into this school system's goal to produce them to get to college, which was another system that produces them supposedly to get a full-time job, which is not happening because the average full-time job is 2.8 years for people who are 25 to 34, without teaching them the reality. We want what should be, not what is. But we have to step out of the way and see our children as they are, not as we choose them to be based on what satisfies our needs.
Well, what a great way to end. That particular stat you just used, I definitely want to pick up on that in our next segment. So thank you everyone for joining Pam and I, and Queued Up with Pam and Ziz. You can definitely follow us on Instagram, our website. If you go to our website, q-edup.com, you will be able to find all of the different platforms that we are communicating on. So again, thank you, Pam. I look forward to our next segment.
I do too. And also send questions. We're interested in what you would like us to talk about and converse about. That's why we're here. The whole program is about, let's start talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.